Hi, this is Tutor Nick P, and this is lesson 591. The title of today's lesson is the difference between tax cut, tax deduction, and tax relief. Okay, somebody wants a screenshot, do it right now. All right, now this is a request video, and I can easily see how this can be confusing, especially to ESL students. But even native speakers sometimes, want this clarified to them, because all three of these words have something to do with lowering taxes. But what is the difference between them? Okay, so let's get right to it. A tax cut is an act of reducing or lowering an individual or company's tax by the local or federal government. So, in the United States, like an individual state could just lower taxes, or they could have more tax deductions for companies that are in their state, or, they could even have lower taxes for the individuals. So, because in the U.S. there's both state tax and then there's federal tax. So that's why you can have a local and the federal government. All right, let's continue. A tax deduction is something that an individual or company may be able to take as part of their tax return to reduce the amount of tax one must pay if it is allowed by law. So, if you pay taxes and, there's certain things that, if you qualify, you can use them to minus from either your overall income or your profit to lower that number, and by doing that, then you lower your tax burden. So you have a lot of tax deduction. So each individual thing that you take on your tax forms to lower that tax burden is a tax deduction. All right, let's continue. So for example, in simple terms, if an individual taxpayer has dependents, each dependent could be a tax deduction. Yeah, so, if you had so many children, or if you were taking care of your parents and you say that, they are dependent on you, then you could take them as a tax deduction, all right? Or if you are a homeowner, you may be able to take a tax deduction on your mortgage, okay? Mortgage interest, your mortgage interest. So this would only apply to people that own homes. But, in order to encourage more people to own homes, maybe they offered this extra tax deduction to them. Or if you had an exceptional amount of hospital bills or healthcare bills that year, because remember, there are standard taxes which factor in some health issues that the average person will pay for. But maybe you had a really bad year. Maybe you got a terrible disease like cancer, or maybe you got into a terrible car accident and you were in the hospital and you had bills that were enormous, maybe even more than your income for that year. Well, if you had tax bills more than your income, you could deduct the whole thing and not really have any tax burden for that particular year. At least no federal or state tax anyway. Okay, good. Let's continue. All right. If you are a company, there are many, many, many possible tax deductions, reducing any costs one has to run a business. So anything that you put into your business or you have to buy to improve your business usually could be a tax deduction. So you put that on there to again, lower your cost. It lowers the profit. It lowers the amount of money you took in, and therefore it lowers your tax burden. Let's continue. All right, good. So, all right, here we say, for example, the EG stands for example. Rent, these are the most basic ones. Obviously, if you have a store and you're renting a space, you can deduct that. Advertising, advertising in a newspaper, online, on TV, whatever. Buying machinery, etc. So all of these things could be used to minus from your overall profit to reduce your tax burden. All right, let's continue. All right, tax relief. Tax relief is when governments target certain groups to help lower their tax burden. Often a group that can help them get votes. Yeah, that's a lot of the reason that why politicians do it. But of course, they won't say that. They'll say that this particular group is more in need of reducing their taxes for whatever reason. And, they will say that they support this group, and therefore this group needs more tax relief than other groups. Okay. All right, so let's continue. Tax relief may also be in the form of an initiative to strengthen goals. So if you're a political party and you say you're in favor of some sort of agenda, and this company kind of helps your agenda, you may offer extra tax relief for them. Now, the tax relief may come in the form of more tax deductions. But the fact that they're targeting you and making you where you can take more tax deductions than others is actually tax relief. Okay, good. So for example, if a government does environmental improvements such as solar panels, improvements in reducing pollution, etc., or if you're an environmental company, say you're a company that makes solar panels, you'll get a lot of tax deductions for that, or anything that helps kind of solve that problem. They target you, but in a good way, so that they lower your tax burden. So they are offering you tax relief in this sense. All right, let's continue. All right, so now we got 6 examples to show, so you get a better feel of just how, the difference between these terms. Here's the first one, most general one. That political party is promising big tax cuts if elected. So here they're just saying in general, maybe they're offering tax cuts across the board, meaning maybe everybody gets tax cuts. Then that's what that is. That's just tax cuts in general. You're lowering everybody's tax burden. Number 2. He usually just takes the standard tax deductions on his form. Yeah, so even an average person, if you're not married, you don't have a family, or you didn't have great healthcare costs that year, or you don't own a home, a lot of people can just do the standard one. And the standard one, at least in the US, it's a lot easier. Once you have all these other deductions, your taxes start to get a lot more complicated. But, you could just take the standard one. Okay. All right, let's continue. Number 3. He is the head of the household and has a number of deductions due to many dependents. Yeah, so, of course, this is for an individual. Again, the more children you have, the more dependents you have. Or again, if you're claiming your parents or somebody else or any other relative, that especially if they live in your household and you say that you're supporting them, you could put them down. Now, remember, the only thing about a dependent is if you claim a dependent on your tax return, another person cannot claim that dependent too. So only one person, for each person, only one person can claim them as a dependent. Yeah. All right, good. Let's continue. All right. Number 4, that company had a lot of renovations and could take more tax deduction. So again, anything that you do to improve your business. So even if you were fixing up your store or your locations, making it look nicer, and that costs you money to do that, that could be tax deductions, obviously. Okay, good. And number 5 here, that political party promises, if elected, they will offer more tax relief to families. Yes. So maybe they'll even lower the percentage even more, or whatever it is. If you're a family, you're going to get more tax cuts than other groups. So that's one of the ones where that is a particular group. Number 6, that political party offered tax relief to any companies that made green improvements. Well, again, so if they do something in the factory that makes it more environmentally, friendly, then anything they do, they may lower their tax burden overall. That's what they can do. So they're targeting a group, but actually in a good way. We often hear target in a bad way, but this is in a good way. That if you do these things, you can lower your tax burden more. So you're getting more tax relief in this sort of sense. Okay, anyway, I hope you got it. I hope it was clear. I hope it was very informative. Hope now you got a much better feel of when you would use one of these terms instead of another. Okay, thank you for your time. Bye-bye.